Okay, so welcome. It is October, November 13th. This is the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. I'm Karen, your president, and we're here talking. We skedaddled a little bit through October talking about conflict resolution. We had so many wonderful responses about that topic that we held it over to November 6th with Sherry Fitzpatrick, the founder of Sherry's Berries. And so we talked with her last week. So we've sort of shortchanged you a little bit on team building, but we have a couple of dozen entries in our classroom, in the NACWE membership classroom, on team building. And we're going to add to that with Iris Grimm today, with Lou Kralchev next week, and with Lisa Jackson the last week of November. I know we're entering into the holidays, so our attendance will be small, and we'll post the replay in our membership group later. But let's just get started with opening with prayer and a few short snippets of announcements, and we'll get going with Iris this afternoon. Father God, we're grateful. We're grateful for the freedoms that we have to be entrepreneurs and to build companies and entrepreneurships and ministries in our country with the freedoms that we have. We pray for the protection of those freedoms, and we're grateful for the joys that we have of running businesses our way, of communities so we don't feel so alone, of educational opportunities to learn new things. We're grateful for this month of learning more about team building. Lord, we're grateful for the many tools and opportunities you've placed out there, especially with the World Wide Web that we can take advantage of as we grow our businesses. And we just pray, Lord, that what we do as we grow our businesses, especially as we talk today about communicating with our team members who so adeptly help us grow our businesses, we pray that those ways please you, Lord, and that we're successful and that we help others to be successful along the way. And we ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. So we, again, are the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. We're talking about team building for the month of November. I'm Karen Lindwall-Borg. I sort of inherited NACWE from our founder, Diane Cunningham. I came in because I was already leading a group similar to this and needed more information, more community, I just needed to go deeper and wider and broader. And this group did that for me. And so the first year that I was in this group, you can't do everything that we have. You can't take advantage of everything we have to offer. You can't do everything that we suggest. But doing a little bit of some things each week, that first year, my business grew by 2.4 times, and you can't beat that. I wish I could say it grew by 2.4 times every year. After that, I'd be sitting really pretty, but it has grown consistently since then. I think that's why these groups exist, because we need community, and we just need more. We need more. We need a change of mindset. We need to understand the processes. We need to understand our why. We need to take new steps and be encouraged by each other. So grateful for NACWE. You can follow us. We have a new free group, and this is the link to that free group, and I'll put it in the chat room as well. We started this free group because you can do so many more things in groups than you can in Facebook fan pages, and we just felt so limited in the Facebook fan page. So this is a new link. It might be a new link for you. It has to be a new link for lots of people because the fan page has over 12,000 people in it. And the free group that just got, we switched over from fan page to free group just because when you post into our fan page, you're not front and center. It kind of puts you over on the side. If you respond to one of our posts, we see what you have to say, but we have to go looking for what you have to say. If you just came in off the cuff and started talking to us, but in our group, you're front and center. We can see everything you say. You can also join us as a member, and if you go to this page, nacwe.org/join, you'll see all of the benefits of NACWE membership. This is one of our members, Callie. This is the lineup for November, and I sort of introduced you to it at the beginning of this call. We're with Iris Grimm today, a fellow dog lover, a fellow coach, business coach and entrepreneur. We're going to hear from her. Her company is called Master Performance Incorporated, and she's going to talk to us about building trust with your team through great communication and cohesion. Next week, we're going to hear from Lou Kralchev. She's a Chief Culture Officer. She goes around the country, around the world, actually, working with large corporations like TGI Fridays and with other corps here close to Texas area. And she's going to talk to us about building your team, and that as you build your team, you build your business. And then we're going to talk to Lisa Jackson, brand ambassador and community leader, about being drab too fad. She's the little black dress girl. If you don't know who she is, that'll be really fun. A couple of things we want you to know about that we do if you're listening in later is we work together. If we block off a strategic block of time on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and from 9 a.m. to about 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we sit here on Zoom and say hello and set a timer and crank out the work. We don't interrupt one another. It's not really a chit-chat time. It's really a time for setting a timer and getting to work. But there's a little bit of accountability there. I know I get more done knowing that no one's watching me, but I know that they're there. And I know that their timers are running like mine is as well. So we invite you to join us. Of course, it's free and it's fun and funny. We pray for one another. We kind of tell each other what we're working on and encourage one another. We also pray together every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can call in or Zoom in to do that now. That's kind of a new venue. This is a video link if you want to take a screenshot of that, and we can put it in the chat room as well, for how to navigate all things NACWI if you were thinking, what in the world and where do I go? And also how to navigate the classroom. The classroom has over 22 venues in it, with over, last count was about 575 courses in it, so you'll want to take advantage of those. I think we bumped somebody off. Anita was there and she just went off. This is Iris Grimm, and I'm gonna stop my screen share and let her share her screen and take over. I'll mute myself so there won't be any background noise. And Iris, I'm so glad we met. And you know, you never know, I talked to someone who talked to someone who talked to someone and introduced me to you, and here we go. I'm so grateful for your time and your expertise this afternoon. You talked to us about team building and about good communication. I wish that someone had taken me as a child and taught me about good communication, better communication. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to unmute you, or you can unmute you. You are muted right now. We can't hear you.
Mute now.
There you go.
Yeah, I am. Sorry. Yeah, I put my screen up here and it moved up there. And Karen, you are absolutely right. I mean, I always say, you know, as kids, we were taught how to talk, but talking does not always equal effective communication. And, you know, I think that is one of the reasons why so many businesses struggle with keeping good people, why so many businesses have a tough time with getting good people. That is also one of the reasons, I think, why so many families are going through divorce, or couples are going through divorce, because, you know, as they say, every relationship starts with a conversation and every relationship ends with a conversation. So, you know, it's like conversations are part of our lives, and in the end, they determine the quality of our lives. So also, if you please also don't unmute yourself all the way and check out completely, only because I wanted this to be interactive. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, I think it's most important that at least the ones that are with us are able to get something for themselves, and that they're learning. And again, when we talk about communication, the first thing that we have to do is communicate and practice it. So the topic really that I want to talk a little bit more about is something called conversational intelligence, and why our words matter when it comes working with our team. And so the question that I have is, and not necessarily for you to answer it out loud, but really answer it to yourself, and that is, when was the last time you had a disagreement or an argument with somebody? You know, and that can be a business partner, it can be a spouse, it can be even one of your children. And then, yeah, the next question that I have for you, if you came up with somebody, is on a level of 1 to 10, where 1 is really, I got over it in a minute and didn't think about it, to 10, I have been ruminating about this for the last week, and I still get upset when I think about it. Question is, how long were you able to keep that conversation in your head? And then the next one question is, how often does this actually happen to you? Because there are some people, to be honest, who have, unfortunately, conflicts, disagreements, arguments in their life almost every day or almost every other day. And what I'm here to say is really that when we don't know how to communicate effectively, it has an impact on our intelligence, meaning we are really not as smart as we can be. It has an impact on our health in a way of that really the diseases that we are coming down with, whether it is an autoimmune disease all the way to cancer, can be caused by our way of communication. And also, communication has an impact on how successful we can be. And this is really what this conversation here with you is about, because my objectives are to help you realize the connection between communication and health, help you teach you the 5 most common conversational blind spots that lead to conflict, frustration, and distrust, and also reinforce 3 practical tools on how you can up-level your conversations and your teamwork. So my next question really would have been is, how many of you actually have a team, meaning people that work with you in your company together? Is there anybody? Or are you all solo entrepreneurs? All right.
I don't know if they're going to pop in or not, but I mean, I have a huge team, what I consider a huge team. Can we back up a little bit? I mean, do you want answers to those questions that you asked before, or are you going to ask them again later?
Sure, but again, it was really, those questions were really more for self-reflection purposes. Okay. For the members to really get clear, all right, let me think about it. How often do I have disagreements? How often do I have an agreement and then, I come home at night. Let's say I haven't had an agreement with a customer, right? And then I come home and then I'm going to tell it my husband, and I bring it up all over again, right? And then I go to bed and I can't sleep at night because I'm still thinking about that conversation that I had, and we just can't let it go. And again, the practice that I talk about and the methodology called Conversational Intelligence, later on, I actually go in there and show from a neuroscientific level what happens in our body. How does really the way we communicate impact our health, and not only our health, but also the health of our team members, and the health of our spouse or of our children. And of course, when it impacts the health of our team members, and then let's say the next day they are calling in sick, it is costing us money. We are getting behind in our work. So it has a really we can even put probably a dollar amount behind it. And again, it comes back to the way we communicate and how we were never taught how to communicate better. Because that is the thing, we know how to talk, and we are pretty, some of us are really bad and some of them are good. And what I'm here to talk about is really we can do even better. And that has to be one of our major goals in life, is always strive on how can I become a better communicator.
Okay.
Okay.
So very good. Yeah, I have a large team. Kim, would you consider yourself as having a team, or do you consider yourself a solopreneur? And Courtney?
I'm a team member, but I don't have my own team.
Okay. All right. But you are part of a team, and that is, so you are communicating up, and you are also communicating on the same level. Yeah.
I'm part of a team now, and I have had a team, and so I've done the parallel and the vertical communication, both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you relate how sometimes we are dragging conversations with us for hours and hours and days sometimes, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Right. And it's human, it's natural, and at the same time I'm here to talk about how we can let this go in in a better way. So here's what I want to talk about. So here, obviously, an entrepreneur, and we're starting with you. And what most of us do is we are good in a skill, in a craft. Whether it is publishing books, or whether it is being a CPA, or whether it is being a financial advisor, or whether it is being a business consultant. And so we think and assume that what makes us successful are our technical skills. And if you are familiar with the book, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, I think he wrote this book in the 90s. He talked about that 95% of all small businesses fail in the first 5 years. And in this book, he talks about that most people are starting their business because they have a craft, they have a technical skill, whether it is, again, being a CPA or being a plumber or being a financial advisor. We have a skill, and we think that's all it takes, and that is what we need in order to be successful. But he talks in his book also about what many people fail to realize when we become entrepreneurs or when we are business owners and we want to grow our business. We also become managers, meaning we have to manage and lead people. And then the second and the third hat that we also wear is being an entrepreneur, being the one that is motivated to move the business forward and to grow the business. So when you think about it, being an entrepreneur, being motivated, being driven, and being self-reliant in that way, what is required of us is our self-management skills. Now, what is included in the self-management skills? That is where it comes down to be able to control our stress. It comes down to time management. It is energy management. It is the ability to solve problems and make quick decisions. It is also our emotional competence, being able not to get our buttons pushed when life does not go our way, right? And then the third thing is, and again, when it comes to wearing the hat of the manager, what we need is interpersonal skills, the ability to communicate effectively with other people, being able to build rapport with people, giving feedback effectively, being good leaders. And so our technical skills, that is what is called that makes up our intelligence quotient. And our self-management skills and interpersonal skills is what is called our emotional intelligence, or EQ. And so conversational intelligence is really part of our interpersonal skills. And so when we as entrepreneurs develop not only our technical skills, meaning we are not just going to our continuing education classes for our profession, but we also take a personal development coach, a personal development seminar, or maybe hire a coach, or we take a class on leadership, or a communications class. And we are developing ourselves in these three areas. That is where we truly become successful and balanced entrepreneurs. And so if you think about it, who belongs to your team? I came up with 4 categories. Let's see, do you have an idea what I came up with?
No. I mean, I could name, I think, who was on my team, but no.
Okay.
No.
All right, so you might be surprised because the first one on our team is our family. Because, if you really think about it, and what I always say, if our family life is not right, it has an impact on our ability to perform. It has an impact on how successful our business can be. The next thing is our friends, because as they say, you know, our friends and the people that are around us have an impact on our mindset and on our own personal growth. But again, they're also the people that are supporting us. Who else belongs to our team? Obviously, our clients. They are part of our team, because if we are not serving them, they will not serve us back, and our business will not survive. And of course, the last one is our staff. Most people really think that our staff are the only ones that are our team members, but really it is all four of them that are part of our team. So here are a couple of questions for you. Number one is, what are the characteristics of a really great conversation where you feel trust, where you feel a bond with that person, and also where you feel like you are making progress through conversations? If you just throw out some ideas for me, what comes up for you? What are the kind of conversations that you really cherish?
Okay, Kim and Courtney, help me out. The first thing I thought of was that it's back and forth. It's mutual.
Okay, mutual, yeah.
That you aren't talked to, that you actually feel heard.
You feel heard?
There's no, like, yeah. She said mutual, but you can have, like, a mutual conversation, but people aren't necessarily talking to you. I mean,
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That people are in that way, when they don't talk to you, that they sometimes preach or sometimes yell or sell, right?
Yeah.
Where somebody else completely dominates the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, there has to be equal parts of listening and speaking. It can't be all, there has to be a balance in that for there to be conversation per se.
What else?
Oh, I know one that really is significant to me, and maybe this is because I'm a listener, but don't come back to me less than 24 hours later after we've had a conversation that's lasted at least an hour and having not remembered any of it. That makes me crazy.
All right.
I mean, it's one thing if you forget one or two things, but if you forget like major parts of the conversation, that just makes me nuts.
Yeah. So considering that this was a negated sentence, how can you turn it around and make it positive? What is it that you want from somebody else when you after a conversation that you had with them?
It's more than listening. I mean, yeah, I guess I want them to listen, but I guess remember.
Remember?
That
Okay.
they took value, is that they took value away from it?
Yeah, listening. Okay, value.
I guess it's disrespectful, so I guess respect.
Respect.
That's respect.
Mm-hmm. Right. What else? Well, that's a good start. It's a mutual conversation. You feel heard. You feel like you are on a mutual level and feel like the other person listens to you and also values and respects you, right? So what gets you annoyed and derails conversations? Because that is where we can use some of the things that Courtney already said, right? Where somebody tells, yells, and sells at us. What else?
Well, now with all the mobile devices, you can tell when someone's not listening to you. You know, if they have to take this call or they're answering a text and we're in the middle of a conversation, right now is my time.
Right.
I'm in front of you.
Right. So it's people are not present.
Yeah.
And people also are many times disrespectful in the way of if they are just grabbing their phone rather than just muting their phone.
It's this thing, I can't remember who said it. I don't remember, but it's like wherever you are, be all there.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it's that thing.
Yeah.
And that's like the negating thing. Don't do that because it's very disrespectful.
Right.
And it's go ahead, Karen.
I also think, the elections kind of brought this to the forefront, that it's okay it's okay to agree to disagree. And so I think one thing that annoys me in conversations or derails it is that In some conversations, it's almost as if it's not okay for people to have differing opinions.
Yeah.
And it is okay.
Yeah. And not
Even
only
on our
that,
team.
yeah. And not even that, it's then when people are getting emotionally out of control, right? And don't put things in perspective in that way, right? Yeah. All right. So thank you very much for sharing that. Because here's the thing that I want to say. Getting to the next level of greatness in your business, or even again in your life, because what I'm talking about applies to business as well as in life, depends on the quality of the culture, whether it is the quality of the culture in your family, whether it is the quality of the culture in the team, which depends on the quality of the relationships, which depends on the quality of the conversations. So in other words, everything, really everything happens through conversations. Whether it is with family members, whether it is with our team at work, or whether it is even with our clients. Even if we never really verbally communicate with clients and sell them something on the phone or in person, even our conversations on websites are conversations where people decide whether they want to buy from us or not. And so what I also always say is life is a series of conversations, and their qualities determine the quality of our lives. If we want to have a better quality of life, we have to start with our conversations. And I even say, not even just the conversations with other people, that is one thing, and that is one thing that I work with my clients, but also the conversation that we have with ourselves. Because sometimes the conversations that we have with ourselves are by far worse than the conversations that we sometimes have with other people, right? So next, I want to talk a little bit more about what actually happens in our brain and what happens when we have conversations and what the latest research came to find out about it. And so here's the thing, when you look at this, we have basically three major brains in our head. However, at the same time now, the neuroscience actually also talks about the heart being another form of the brain, because there's always a connection between our heart and our brain. And not only that, they also came to find out that the communication from the heart to the brain, there are actually more nervous system going up towards the brain than from the brain going down to the heart. So the first brain that we know of is our primitive brain, and that is the brain that is really in charge of all of the automatic functions that are happening in our body, whether it is our breathing, our heartbeat, the digestion, all of that is controlled by our primitive brain. Then we have the limbic brain, and the limbic brain is the brain that is in charge of our emotions. And especially there is one part of the limbic brain that is the amygdala, and we will go into greater details about the amygdala in a minute. And then the next part that we talk about is our neocortex. And a big part of our neocortex is on the front side is the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is in charge of collaboration, co-creation, and really decision making, everything that has something to do with creativity and creation. That is where actually our prefrontal cortex is in charge of. And of course, and I talked about earlier the heart brain. And what they came to find out is that trust sits in our prefrontal cortex. Initially, scientists thought that trust and distrust both sit in the same part of the brain, but they came to find out that is not the case. Trust sits in our prefrontal cortex versus our distrust sits in the amygdala. So in other words, if I have a conversation with somebody else, or let's say I already get the vibe that I don't trust this person, whether the way they look or whether the things that they have said in a previous conversation, our prefrontal cortex already shuts down, and again, our amygdala gets activated, which means we are on guard, which means we are on defense, right? Which means there is also a certain level of fear involved because we feel like we have to protect ourselves. And immediately the stress response in our body gets activated. So here is what actually then happens. When the stress response gets activated in our body, whether it is, a conversation, even to the point of, let's say, I prepare a conversation, I get ready to have a conversation that I already get annoyed about. What happens then is, again, my thought around it already gets my amygdala activated. At the same time, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, they are waking up and they are sending some messages down to our adrenal glands, which are sitting right on top of our kidneys. And they are in charge of, the adrenal glands are in charge of creating cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And so again, in that moment already, our body gets activated. We are getting ready to kind of like fight or flight situation. And what they found out about it, again, when we are getting in that fight or flight response, what happens, our blood pressure goes up, right? Our nervous system gets activated. Our blood sugar goes up because, again, we have to set free some resources there for the fight or flight, which all is involved with some kind of physical activity. And not only that, our immune system goes down, because in those kind of times when our stress response is up, our body does not have time to focus on itself. Our body is all about survival, right? And not about healing. But these are only the things that happen in our body, but what happens in our brain? Number one is our IQ goes down. So the research has shown now that when we are in a high stress situation, our IQ level goes down by several points. And not only that, our EQ, our emotional intelligence goes down as well. Again, think about it. When we are really stressed out, we can't think straight. Again, the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that is in charge of creativity and collaboration, creation, shuts down. The amygdala gets activated. They even talk about it in the emotional intelligence circle around amygdala hijack. It's all about us getting emotionally aroused. It's all about fight or flight and defense, and we can't think straight. Now, it would be nice if this happens and we can, we walk out of the room and we forget about it and it's done. But that is not the case, because it takes 24 to 48 hours for the cortisol to go back down to its normal level. So again, just imagine you have an argument with one of your team members at work, and and this happens in your body as well as in the body of your team member. You have a really emotional conversation. There is some yelling involved. You are getting angry, they are getting angry. So you're walking out of the room. Of course, it's not like that you can immediately forget about it and move on and be creative. No, you're sitting back and you are thinking about it, and you think about it 10,000 times, and then finally you're slowing down, you get some work done, but it was really, really hard, because all of that, of course, again, it's like an immediate energy rush, and after it is done, you felt like you just ran a race. But then you're coming home, and of course you have to tell your spouse about it. And so right there, you activate it in your body all over again. You are reliving that entire event all over again. And again, your cortisol level goes up. And then we wonder why we feel tired the next day. And then we wonder why we can't lose weight. And all because, again, We don't know how to communicate better with people. We don't know really how to build trust with people in the right way, and how to lead these kind of conversations so that our body does not go in that kind of cortisol bath that we are sitting. I mean, and some people probably sit in it every day of the year. And then we wonder why so many people get sick with, diseases like cancer or autoimmune diseases that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives. Of course, one thing that I also need to mention is what is called the negativity bias. And that is something that is innate in all of us. And part of it is really because, back in the days when our ancestors were out, picking berries or being out in the woods, and there was a tiger, they could not think about it first and really assess it. The body automatically went into this fight, flight, survival response. And so, we are still doing that. And the negativity bias is called also the notion that things of a more negative nature has a greater effect on our psychological state and processes than neutral or positive things. So in other words, if there is a person who is telling you, oh, you did really a great job today, and then there is another person who may say to you maybe something such as, that sweater does not look that great on you. We don't pay as much attention on the positive things that are being said to us, but the things that other people are saying that are more negative, such as the sweater does not look so great on you, we are taking that with us and we are ruminating about it all over again, and we turn it upside down and flip it over. And again, as long as we are not aware of it and realize what our brain is doing and making a conscious decision to stop it, then again, it's a way for us to feel depleted and drained, that we are worrying about things that really are not of great importance in our life. And all of that, again, has an impact on our work performance and everything, and even on our life satisfaction, right? Any questions about these things? Of course, I forgot to say, if there is something that resonates with you, or you say, Iris, that does not make sense, please stop me right away and ask a question right there and then. Anything so far that is a new insight for you that you did not know before?
Well, I have a counseling degree, so does Courtney, and a lot of this is kind of new to me. Mm-hmm. One of the things it reminds me of is in our counseling courses, we were taught about differentiation. I'm hoping you're going to tell us there's a way to improve these things in our lives. That one of the things we were taught about is differentiation of self, and it is sort of your ability to manage this crisis that we saw in previous slides. I love these slides. It really brought it home for me. And one of the things they said over and over is you tend to choose friends and you tend to marry spouses that are kind of at the same level of differentiation of self that you are. And so there's this tendency to kind of stay where you are, not to really grow and improve, but that you can get to a place where you kind of can, in a moment of crisis like that, when you're faced with someone who's very negative, you can take a step back and sort of differentiate yourself from the moment, and you can respond better in a more mature manner and that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing where you're taking us next. But
yeah. Well,
I love the mental pictures. They're so helpful.
Good. And the thing is also where back in the days they used to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, as if the brain is not changeable. But now we know the brain changes every day, and just we did something a certain way in the past does not mean we will repeat it all over again. Many times what it takes, it first starts out with making a decision, right? And make the decision to make a change from here on out. And then the next step is also to rehearse. So if I want to create something new, what is it that I want to create? And then of course the next step is to say, what have I done in the past that I don't want to do again, so that I can recognize that and change it as soon as I recognize it. But I'm going a different route. And again, this is really just a summary to really say there is a neurochemical process that is happening in our brain when we are communicating. And on the one side, communication can create arousal and stress inside of our body, where hormones get activated and that are not always helpful and healthy for our body. But then at the same time, of course, we also can have conversation where oxytocin, dopamines, and serotonin gets sent out of our body, which are the feel-good hormones, and where we feel like we are bonded and connected with people. And this is really what conversational intelligence is all about, is about what are some practices and skills that we can do in order to be connected, be more connected with people, and feel good in and after conversations. And that is what this conversation is about. So again, what is conversational intelligence? It's a methodology to connect, navigate, and grow with others. Hold on. It is to understand how conversations impact our relationship with others. It is about activating the parts of the brain that trigger trust and innovation. And it's also about a methodology to catalyze profound shifts in communications and increase impact and effectiveness. And so next, I want to talk with you about the 5 blind spots that really lead to conflict, frustrations, and distress, misunderstanding, stress, and also loss of productivity in our conversations. And so my first question to you is, what is it that you see here? I'm sure some of you have seen already these pictures.
Mm-hmm. So
Karen.
I see the pretty woman with the hat.
Uh-huh.
But
I see both of them.
I remember you're supposed to see. It'll take me a minute.
Yeah.
To see the haggard woman. You see both of them, Courtney, automatically. You just see both.
Yeah, I see both of them.
Okay. What about here? What do you see here?
I see a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, musical instruments and doorways and.
I see 2 people face to face, but I also see 2 people sitting side by side, and one's playing the guitar.
Mm-hmm. But do you also see old people looking at each other face to face? Right.
Yeah.
So again, think about it. Of course, we had here a conversation, but if I just had asked you, what do you see, without even waiting for your answer, and then would have started to communicate and tell a little bit more, and I only talked about the old haggard woman, not knowing that you actually saw also a young woman, right there would have been a disagreement. And one of the blind spots that we typically always have is we assume that everyone thinks like us, feels like us, and sees the world like us, right? So in that way, really, when we are attached to our point of view and we are unable to see what other people are seeing, that is when we tend to be more dominant in our communication. That is when we tend to tell or yell or try to sell people. And that is where we actually create a disconnect. And again, when we are creating that kind of disconnect with other people, then there is a lack of trust. And then when we have that lack of trust, what happens next is that our prefrontal cortex again gets shut down, and we can't think as creatively, and we are losing a lot in our conversations. But not only that, another blind spot is also that trust changes reality, and also feelings change our reality. So in other words, again, as I just said, when there's already a sense of distrust, when we are getting into a conversation, a different part of our brain, the amygdala, gets activated, and all of that shifts the entire conversation. And when we don't have that connectivity with other people, we cannot really co-create something together in a way that it benefits everybody. Any questions about these two blind spots? Okay, so blind spots number 3 is failure to emphasize. And again, when we are not able to stand in another person's shoe and we are fearful, comes back to we can't really function 100% in the conversation. There is disconnect in the conversation rather than connectivity. And again, we are failing to really be our best in our conversations because we will always feel guarded. And then blind spot number 4 is how we remember things. So in other words, we think I remember, therefore I know. But what happens actually is that when we are in conversations, we drop out of conversations every 12 to 18 seconds. So every 12 to 18 seconds, we are just gone for a moment. And we don't remember what the other person said, but we remember how we interpreted what the other person said. And what we interpret, because when we interpret something, what we also do is we bring in situations and examples from our past, right? And we mix that together with what the person said, and we created our own picture. That may not be what the other person has said, but this is how we interpreted the message. And then the blind spot number 4 is really that the meaning resides in the listener. So again, a lot of times people think that the meaning resides in the speaker. But as the speaker, my responsibility is to have a conversation with the listener and ask them or her, what have you heard from me that I said? How do you understand what I just told you? So that I can find out what the meaning is in the listener, so that then I can either correct or explain something in a different kind of way if something was misunderstood. And so when we are not aware of these kind of blind spots, and again, it is so easy that they happen all in a split seconds, then again, what many times happens is we are creating a disconnect with the people that then leads more to distrust, which then leads to more disagreements, frustrations, and conflicts, where it comes to a point where sometimes people the only thing that they can do is actually leave the conversation or the relationship, whether it is a workplace relationship or whether it is even a personal relationship. So, quick review. Which of the blind spots surprised you the most and why?
These aren't, these blind spots, I guess because I teach anger management, and so, like, because I'm so familiar with anger as from a personal and professional perspective, like, I get it, because this is exactly, like, when you're talking about the hypothalamus and how your body really shuts down when you get in these elevated states, because you just don't, creativity shuts down, logical thinking shuts down, it's all about fight or flight, and there's just, like, that's the state anger creates too, this like heightened thing. And so, and I'm constantly like incorporating information into information I already have, and so when I think about this like communication, like all these blind spots kind of, that's exactly what happens with anger too. When you come into, and it's a lower level, like it's way down. When I talk about anger, I talk about it in a scale, like there's this wide polarization of anger. And so if you talk about in this lower, it's in the low level of just that rumbly, like those conversations that kind of stick with you, that just nag at you, and they're those niggling things.
Yeah.
So none of them are really surprising to me when I think about it that way.
Yeah.
They're those things that just kind of pick at your brain for a little while, that you want to resolve, that you want to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're like, oh, okay, so that's still part of that whole process of, it's part of anger management, it's part of conflict resolution, it's part of team building, is being able to resolve those conflicts and regulate your own systems in order to build team and build communication.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And that's where a lot of self-management comes in, to really being able to be aware of that in that moment and realize, okay, I'm starting to get angry here, and being aware of my own scale of where am I, so that I don't wait all the way until I'm full blown out angry, but I feel already some discomfort coming up inside of me, and just to be right transparent with the person and just say, hey, I need to talk with you about something here. Because there was something that was coming up inside of me that I was not sure, but it created some uncomfortable feeling inside of me, and I want to talk with you about this, so that we are not waiting all the way until it goes to the top.
I'm a very visual and kinesthetic learner, so I love the visual picture, and it made so much more sense to me of there's a fear factor here as I'm talking to this person. I really feel like running away. No wonder I can't listen very well to what they're trying to tell me. But there's also that level of, there is, how do I say this? There are times that really there is a legitimate fear. I shouldn't be listening maybe to what they have to say. I talked to a client the other day, and she said that a woman called her, had heard about her business and her ministry, and just was like, I'm going to move to the town that you live in, and I want to work with you. And all these red flags are going up, right? Because we're thinking, you don't even know her. You have, let's meet first. Let's talk first. I'm going to invest all this money in your company. And I was saying to her, tell her to wait. Tell her you're not comfortable with this.
Right.
There's that protective, that amygdala that protects you.
Right.
Freeze, fight or flight syndrome, which is a good thing. I thought of that. That really made a lot of sense to me.
Especially when people are coming at us so fast, and we don't have time. There's no way for us to say yes or no. It's like they already made their mind up, so to speak. And it does not take a whole bunch of time to develop trust, but it requires conscious creation. And it requires awareness, and it requires certain skills, and really that is on practices, and that is really what I teach through this methodology. People is everyday practices that they can incorporate in their business, as well as in their personal life, to restore some trust. Because again, even though there are certain people that we may have, but that we feel like we distrust them, that doesn't mean that we can't shift it or turn it around. But it requires new skills and different skills in order to lead it more onto the trust, towards the trust side.
It was also a great reminder to me to that it's okay to take time, and to even give myself permission to say, to notice those red flags going off in me during a conversation, and to say, let me get back to you.
Yeah, right.
And give myself time. You said 24 to 48 hours for the cortisol to, and I thought, well, why don't I give myself time sometimes to think things over and get back to someone with a better answer or a better response.
Right, yeah. And that's the main thing, really. It's giving yourself time and creating that distance, so that again, you can think from a different perspective, and then really say, what can I create from here to serve this person, to serve my community, and also to serve myself. And again, there are certain people that we can develop relationships, but then at the same time, we don't have to develop good relationships with everybody. But at the same time, we do need to be respectful to everybody.
Yeah.
So now I thought, think of a person with whom you currently don't see eye to eye. So, just like Karen, what you said, for example, this person that you just mentioned that contacted, And here's what I want you to look at it. When you look at this person that you don't see eye to eye, and this is what is called the conversational dashboard, where you see where there is low trust, you feel very resistant to talk with this person. You are very skeptic. Versus when you are like, yeah, I'm not so sure about this person. Again, it's more a wait and see approach. And when you are feeling you have a high trust relationship with somebody, let's say a spouse or a business partner that you are rocking and rolling it with this person, and you are kicking butt in your market, there you are more co-creator or an experimenter and a co-creator. And so what happens is really, when you think about your listening ability with these individuals, with somebody that you don't trust, all of your listening is all about you. You know, it's all about I. What can I do for myself to protect myself, to make sure my interests are met? And again, everything comes from the amygdala. It's all about fight or flight. Versus if there is somebody that you are partnering with and that you are having a high level of trust, that is where your prefrontal cortex is engaged. That is also where your heart is open, where it's all about how can we create something together? And there's also where you actually have oxytocin flowing through your body, which is the feel-good hormone, versus when you are protecting yourself and you have a distrust relationship with somebody else, it's the cortisol that is running through your body. So the question is, do you want to have cortisol or do you want to have oxytocin through your body? Now, the sad part is, and again, the cortisol stays in our body for 24 to 48 hours, versus the oxytocin only stays in our body for a couple of hours. That's sad. That is really the bummer about this. So we need more oxytocin showers and less cortisol baths. So now I want to talk about, and I see I have to hurry up now because we're at the top of the hour, but I make it quick. Practical tips to up-level conversations and restore the trust. The first one is double-clicking, meaning you look inside someone else's meanings of words. So for example, if somebody says, I really don't like that sweater, what do you mean about that? Is it the color? Is it the style? What is it about it? Rather than just taking everything in and absorbing it, really to double click and really look into the meaning of the word, of the meanings of the words that people said, right? Always asking if somebody says, what would be another good example? If one of your staff members comes and says, can you help me with this issue at work, right? To initially ask, for example, what is it that you know already about this topic? So rather than just going right from the beginning, and I had a client of mine, or I have a client of mine who had this issue where she spent so much of her time always in one-on-one meetings with people, because when they came to her, she rarely listened to them. They came in with a problem and she tried to control, and she just bombarded them with information rather than saying, all right, where specifically do you need some help? Let's step back. What do you mean by X? Tell me a little bit more about it, and really listen there and go a level deeper to find out what the person actually means with the words that they say. A second one is listen to connect. And we talked about listening earlier. And when I talk about listening to connect, that means building rapport with somebody. Be present. So in other words, not having the cell phone around or checking cell phones in between conversation. Focus on the speaker, having eye contact with the speaker. Releasing the need to be right. Asking questions to clarify. and also to double click and really bring no judgment into the conversation. Really just come in with a blank canvas, have no judgment. When the judgment comes up, just drop it and really be there to listen to the person. And the last thing I have is ask questions for which you have no answers. And especially they are asking open-ended questions, meaning the what, the when, the where, the why, the how question, where you are inquisitive and curious, where you activate trust networks in the brain, and where you also expand the conversational space and open up the access to the prefrontal cortex. So just a little bit more about me. Whoops. I have been a professional coach and trainer for the last 18 years. I basically work with entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, and also their teams, really with people who want to get more out of themselves, their lives, and their teams. And the one offer that I really had was for the first 3 people, if there's something that resonates here with you, let's say you have a situation right now in your business with one of your team members where you struggle, where there is maybe a lot of conflict going on, I offer you or I invite you to have a conversation with me. Just email me to iris@irisgrimm.com, and we'll set up an hour time where I really go a little bit deeper with you and help you to come up with ideas how you can restart that conversation, how you can restore some trust, or even how you can manage yourself in the conversation so that you can actually change that conversation around. And also, if you want the handout or the PowerPoint or any additional resources, just email me, and again, I will send this out as well. And Karen, what I also will do, I will send you the PDF of the presentation so that you can put it up in your classroom.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is, I mean, my mind is just, the wheels are turning, right? Because I think I have a biology degree, but it's very old. Yeah. And then in the counseling, of course, they just barely touch on this stuff.
Yeah.
It should have been probably a greater, there should have been a greater focus. We have several members who are nurses and nurse practitioners, and I'm going to kind of pinpoint them and hone in on them when we post the replay of this, because I think they're going to really enjoy this. I did. And I am so grateful. Looking forward to watch when we post the replay in the group and see if people have questions. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, especially as we approach the holidays. There will be a little less interaction in there, but you know, if they do, we'll tag you and draw you in to answer some questions. I thought it was very fascinating. I so appreciate it. And I also want to say, you know, I have a tendency I love the color on your slides, and I have a tendency to kind of clutter my slides up, and I think you've inspired me to use a whiter background and less stuff on the slides. I was really able to follow this. I just loved it.
Good. Glad to hear that.
I wanted to say that to Courtney because she kind of helps me colorize my life. She's one of our team members, and so I have a tendency to just way overdo. So I love the crispness and cleanness of what you've presented here. And
good.
I'm anxious to know a little bit more about these institutions that are at the bottom of your slides. So we probably will have a chat. Thank you so much, Iris, for being
You're
with
welcome. You're welcome. My pleasure.
Look forward to getting to know you better. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.